It's really funny how the media, the fans, everybody that is watching this tire fire of a Vancouver Canucks season so far, we all just keep on finding more and more and more things to talk about. You know, I'll tell you this right here. When I wrapped up the Columbus post-game video, so I was watching the game, they blew it, 4 straight losses, multi-goal leads, whatever, and I had to quickly do the video, go over to scrimmage hockey, and then go out with my friends for sushi afterwards. While I was in the car going to the sushi restaurant, one of my friends was like, hey, you know, sorry to hear about the Canucks, man. Like, must be tough as a fan watching them lose all the games and be bad and everything. And I was like, yeah, you know, it sucks. As a fan, I don't want to see my team go out there and lose, but from the perspective of a content creator who talks about things that people are talking about and that thrives off of the conversations going around in the city, this is an absolute goldmine. And the folks on 650, I believe it's Canucks Central with Satyr Shah, they went out there and pretty much said the same thing. Hey, don't pity us for having to talk about this. This is great. Like, when it comes to a pure material standpoint as to what's available to discuss, the fact that they are so historically bad, so bad to the point that they're breaking records that have never been touched in National Hockey League history, that in and of itself just allows us to bring up more and more and more. You can talk about individual goals, Johnny Gaudreau, the wraparound, you can talk about the line changes, you can talk about the defensive responsibility for all of the guys, you can talk about who's lacking, who's providing, you could talk about Garland getting scratched, you could talk about Rathbone not playing. There are so many angles that we can highlight when it comes to Vancouver Canucks quote-unquote problems. And this is kind of the overarching thing that always gets brought up, but when the team does poorly, that's when everything comes to the surface. That's when all the inconsistencies and the kinks and the little bumps in the grain start to showcase themselves and bring themselves into bigger, more prominent media conversations. When the Vancouver Canucks are winning, it's easy to go out there and just say, hey, they scored a goal. Look at Kuzmenko. He went out there, he dangled the pants off a guy, he shot and he scored. He's amazing. And they won 3-2. That's it. That's the video. Goodbye. When they're losing like this, it starts to become an even bigger pool of conversations all around. And that's kind of what we're talking about here in today's video, as we go over the update that was shared on Daily Faceoff's morning show by Chicago Blackhawks TV analyst Colby Cohen. Now, if you don't know who Cohen is, he does stuff for the Chicago Blackhawks media crew and broadcasting over there, and so it's very interesting to hear this particular update from what he said on the Daily Faceoff show. We're going over onto an article on CanucksArmy.com written by my buddy Chris Faber that transcribes the quote made by Cohen. This was the first story they brought up on the Daily Faceoff show Wednesday. Cohen says, I've heard there's a lot of friction in that dressing room between some of the star players and then the rest of the team. It's real cliquey in that dressing room. The way that they're promoting players, particularly on their social media channels, and just everything that I hear coming out of that dressing room, it seems really dysfunctional at the moment. Cohen went on to speak about the healthy scratch of Conor Garland on Tuesday night against Columbus, and he believes that that decision not to play Garland could have rubbed some players the wrong way. This is the one player who you would never want to take out of your lineup because he plays the right way, said Cohen. When you watch Garland, he doesn't cheat. He stops on pucks, he goes to the net, he plays bigger than he is. He really does put it all on the line, and you can't necessarily say that about every player in Vancouver right now. It did not make sense to me to scratch him. I think that decision rubs a lot of players the wrong way. Other players take that personally, and not in a way to rev him up, but almost in a way that you would get pissed off at your coach and your management team for making that decision. Now, that's a quote that I wanted to let it sink for a bit before we dissected it. I will say, just based off of the updates that we had seen from Vancouver Canucks-related sports insiders, it was apparent that the Garland scratching on Tuesday was a Bruce decision through and through. This wasn't a management thing. This was Bruce going out there and saying, yeah, we have to be accountable about the way we play. I could have taken a lot of guys out, and I chose Garland. Speaking about accountability, we also had Jannik Hansen make his way over onto, I believe it was the People's Show yesterday as well on Sportsnet 650, and he went off about accountability and how this is probably the biggest thing that the Vancouver Canucks lack right now in their locker room, that guys are getting kind of let off the hook just based off of how they're playing. It doesn't really look like anybody's being held accountable. There are player-only meetings and captain speeches and conversations that happen between teammates wherein you could actually call somebody out and say, hey, X-player, let's just say Höglander, you gotta track to the net better, buddy. You gotta go out there, get that shot on goal. We can't have these missing the net. You could go out there and go into the locker room of the Canucks of old. Kessler, Burrows, Sedins, these guys would keep their players accountable. And Hansen was saying that that's a really important part when it comes to being able to work out of a slump like this. He also talked about the construction of the team and said that they needed to fix the defense and they didn't really do anything. Which isn't wrong, per se, but either way, going back over to the main quote that we had seen from Colby Cohen, it was interesting that this was said by a Chicago Blackhawks media insider because, I mean, the Canucks had made 2 trades with the Blackhawks previously. It was Jason Dickinson going over there as well as the Adam Gaudette trade. So if you wanted to go out there and maybe speculate that Cohen has some insider knowledge as to what some of these players are talking about, maybe just in some hypothetical world, I'm not saying this is what happened, but maybe it's Jason Dickinson who goes over there to Chicago, he gets traded, and he's like, hey, I'm going to talk to some of the media members about what happened in Vancouver and what things are like, because if things are going that poorly over there, maybe some people would like to know why, and I kind of have some insight to that. That's not me trying to throw Jason Dickinson on the spot and say, oh, he's the guy that leaked the information that the Canucks locker room is dysfunctional, but just kind of throwing out some ideas as to how Cohen could have had that information. But either way, this is what Irfan Gaffar said about the same thing. I've got no issues with guys spilling tea to make themselves feel good on a new team. This is kind of why I'm thinking maybe it was a Dickinson or something like that as well. But whatever is happening in Vancouver is not new. Not every teammate is going to get along. Cup champs have had teammates they've hated. Not being besties isn't the reason they're blowing leads every game. And at the same time, that perspective definitely reigns true as well. This was also talked about on Sportsnet, but you're never really in a situation where you are friends with all of the people you're surrounded with, whether that's a workplace or a classroom or heck, even a YouTube comment section. You're never going to find 100% cohesion and valued friendship with everybody. So when it comes to a hockey team being the way it is, where apparently it's kind of cliquey, maybe some guys don't like each other, maybe it's not all sunshines and rainbows, everybody is BFFs forever going on in there. At the end of the day, they're still millionaires, they're still making money playing hockey, and they're still doing a pretty bad job at playing that hockey. So there's something that's got to give here. We had seen some other comments made by Bruce Boudreau saying that the team might be mentally weak. This is what Jim Rutherford said about the Canucks and the first 4 games of the season to Rick Dhaliwal after the Columbus loss the other day. We're all disappointed. I thought we had better structure and habits in Columbus. We have to play the right way. This is what he talked about when it comes to his patience level. I'm a very patient person. I'm not going to base everything on a 5-game road trip. He also said that this morning, or yesterday morning at least, Rutherford and Boudreau had a very good positive meeting in the morning. He also talked about Jack Rathbone. I'm not worried about him, but he cannot sit too long. This was also a point of contention as to why a guy like Noah Juleson was called up for the Washington game and he actually played, when you had Jack Rathbone there, already on the roster, not being given the opportunity instead. Rutherford also talked about JT Miller. He's an emotional player. Sometimes he tries to do too much, and he'll be fine. Mikheyev will help him too. So at the end of the day, I mean, this video, I don't really feel like there was too much of a point to make in this video. It was just kind of highlighting that there's a lot of drama. And because of the team's very poor start to the season, which, you know, deservedly so. I mean, you play bad, you screw around, and you find out that way. That when the team goes on such a historically bad losing streak to kick off the year, there are going to be so many conversations brought to the forefront as to why X guy should get traded, or why Y guy is not showing off all too well, or why Z coach is not really making the right decisions. It's kind of pandemonium right now. And this stuff about the dysfunctional Canucks locker room does not make it any better, although there are other fish to fry, I feel, in Canuck land as well. So, Todd of the Console, your thoughts about all the Canucks drama that we have seen. what do you think the team is going to be able to do against Minnesota, and just your overall thoughts? I mean, realistically, the Canucks could have been 4-0-0 to start the year. They had multi-goal leads in every single game, but no, instead of being 4-0, they are 0-3-1. So, talk in the comments all your thoughts about the Canucks. I hope you enjoyed this video. Rolls 99, and bye.